I uninvited my mom from my wedding.
Why?
Because she betrayed me and did something to my fiancé I simply can't forgive. My fiancé, 29 female, and me, 34 male, are getting married in 2 weeks after 13 years of friendship and 4 years of dating. She's fantastic, and our relationship has been so good for the both of us. Planning the wedding has been uncomplicated and fun. We included my mother a lot. For example, my fiancé took her dress shopping. The reason is that my fiancé has always had a good relationship with my parents, and it grew much closer over the past year, after her mother died. They kind of see her as another child, and I know that fiancé appreciates that immensely. As for my fiancé's father, she went no contact when she was 15. Even before, he hadn't played an important role in her life. His behavior was one cause in her having depression and low self-esteem. It took her years to heal. She's happy with the way things are now, and I never met the man, so neither of us has considered inviting him to the wedding. My mother, however, won't understand why we won't invite him. Mom is a retired psychologist. She has other experience with children-parent reunification, and she thinks that my fiancé needs that. Even more after my fiancé's mom's death. Fiancé and me both have shut my mom down plenty of times. We made it both clear that this man was not to know anything about my fiancé's life, nor would he be welcome to go anywhere near the wedding. For a while, Mom shut up. My mom doesn't know fiancé's father, so the other night, we had a dinner with the family. My mom had an announcement. Apparently, she looked my fiancé's father up and went to see him. Then she invited him to our wedding. She just seemed so pleased. My family was appalled and angry, and they all know what has happened. My fiancé somehow remained calm and told my mom how inappropriate that was. How Mom hurt my fiancé terribly by stepping over the boundaries she's laid down. How fiancé had lost all her trust in Mom after this. Well, I then uninvited my mom and we left. Fiancé only broke down once we got home. My mother's also been inconsolable since and called me at least a dozen times, but probably closer to a baker's dozen. I haven't picked up yet. Fiancé feels unsafe to have the wedding if there's a chance that her father might show up. We might actually have to cancel the whole thing. My father, who's not condoning any of my mother's actions, thinks I should talk to Mom. Just hear her out. My siblings agree that uninviting her was a bit drastic. I just see the distress my mother's caused my fiancé, and I get angry all over again. So, am I the a-hole for sticking to our decision? I met my dad earlier. He's really sorry for what my mom did, and how he pushed me to listen to her at first. I told him that my fiancé was the person hurt in all this, and that it was really up to her. Dad did offer to cover additional costs that we might have now. Both siblings called individually to apologize to my fiancé as well. I don't know what to make of it just now. It's a good start, I think. I haven't talked to Mom, though. Also, my fiancé's brother-in-law had a good idea regarding the wedding. He might do it earlier. That way, we'd at least keep the venue. We're still figuring out details, but it might actually work. What's up, guys? Mr. Reddito here. There's a complete update for this story. I hope you're enjoying the content so far. If you are, click that subscribe button. Let's jump into this update. Since a bunch of people asked for the update, here it is. First, thanks all for the helpful comments, insights, and, well, awards. We were very overwhelmed and grateful, and thanks to the mods for helping with the update. I've never had a post get this much attention and didn't really know what to do. The biggest thing is, guys, we're married. In the end, my wife's sister and brother-in-law saved the day. Originally, the wedding was on the 18th at brother-in-law's restaurant. That was the date and place where we went from friends of dating 5 years ago. On the day of the OP, wife went to see her sister. They suggested having the wedding just a week earlier on the 11th. It felt like the best option. Brother-in-law was willing to do the work because wife is like a sister to him. His team and him got a generous tip from my dad. Wife, sister-in-law, brother-in-law, and I told all the guests to save my family if the date changed. Wife did not want to tell people why, and amazingly, everyone made it work, except for like 3 people. My family was told the morning of the wedding just to make sure wife's father would not have time to come to the wedding, as he lives 15 hours away from us. My family did not complain because they knew that this was messed up. It was all a bit stressful, but my wife felt like a spy on a mission and had fun with it. I guess I can say I was glad to see her excited once more, and there's no sign of her father at the wedding, so I guess Mom finally listened. In the weeks before the wedding, we met my family to talk several times. These were long, long talks. Why my mom did it? She just thought she knew better. No excuse other than arrogance. They all apologized, and my wife said one family torn apart by her father's actions was enough. She insisted that they were invited, so that was that. However, we made it clear that contact with her father would be punished much harder in the future, especially when it comes to children. It's forgiven, but not forgotten, I guess. As to what wife's father found out from my mom, apparently not much. He knew a bunch already from my wife's eldest brother, and my mom just fills in the gaps. That brother is the only of my wife's siblings that was still in touch with her father. Brother and wife were on thin ice before that already for many, but different reasons. Yes, we let the brother attend the wedding, mostly because we didn't want more drama. But we'll tackle that when wife feels ready to do so. We did have a honeymoon to get to first, you know. All in all, I think we're fine. Wife is still very upset and hurt still, more so by her brother's actions now. With my family, well, I guess we'll work on it. The imminent threat is dealt with. Boom, fire put out. Now, we start fixing the damage. Through it all, my wife was amazingly calm and just reflected. It made me much more grateful that I get to be with her. Okay, so one of the commenters was not happy with the mother, saying this: "Idiot is a very generous term for someone so much worse. That mother would get more leeway if she wasn't a psychologist. What the heck was she thinking? A psychologist would have more intimate experience with how messed up and complicated family dynamics can be." Shaking my head big time on this one. Guys, that does make a lot of sense. You would think somebody who is a psychologist for a living would know that this was totally out of line and crossing all the boundaries. But I would like to hear your thoughts on it. Drop it in the comment section down below telling me exactly what you think of this situation. We still have one more story to look at today, and the title is this: OP asks if they'll be an a-hole for uninviting their brother to their father's funeral. Yeah, sounds pretty bad, right? I have 3 younger siblings, 2 brothers, Andrew and Ben, and 1 sister, Claire. When we were younger, my father discovered Ben was homosexual. He was enraged and probably would have disowned Ben on the spot if it was not for the intervention of our mother. Dad and Ben never reconciled, and Dad did everything in his power to make Ben as uncomfortable as possible. Us siblings stayed close, but eventually Ben could not take the constant abuse anymore, and he moved out. Claire followed, but for career reasons, Andrew and I stayed in our hometown. Well, Dad passed away of COVID complications a few days ago. As the eldest son of the family, it became my responsibility to try to prepare the funeral. He was a prominent member of the local community, so attendance would definitely be high. Now, we come to the main issue. Ben wants to give a eulogy and sent me a draft of his speech. Unsurprisingly, the contents were not flattering, and I rejected him directly on the spot. He got angry, told me that this was the best he chanced to expose Dad's hypocrisy, especially since he had the image of a good family man. He wanted everyone to know how much abuse he suffered at the hands of his father. Now, I love Ben unconditionally, he's my younger brother, and there are not a lot of things I would not do for him. However, this is one of them. It is simply not appropriate to speak ill of the dead at their own funeral, which is supposed to be a celebration of their life. For all his ugly, hideous flaws, Dad was a complicated person, and focusing the entire funeral on his relationship with one person is just simply too much. There's also the fact that letting him do such a eulogy will probably cause a massive fallout in the community. Ben will not have to deal with the consequences because he lives in another state, but Andrew and I will be left picking up the pieces. Claire is on Ben's side for this one, while Andrew is on mine. I want to stress that I'm not trying to cover for my father or what he's done to Ben. But there's a time and a place for such thing, and a funeral is not it. Ben eventually backed down, but his husband has tipped me off that Ben is still preparing to cause trouble. I really don't want to do this, but it seems to uninvite my brother from the funeral's the only choice. The question I have for you is, would I be the a-hole if I did so? And for those asking why I would ever want to honor such a horrible man in the first place, it's complicated. Dad was a great father until the incident, which happened when I was in college. It's not easy being torn between two people that you love, and even though I can say I did not hesitate to choose Ben, Dad was still the person I grew up admiring and loving. I'm still sorting my feelings out and trying to reconcile the loving father that raised me and my siblings with the man who threw away everything for his petty prejudices. For those asking about the fallout, it has to do with the town's local politics. That's all I'm willing to say. Going to do a last few clarifications here because people are making a lot of assumptions. No, we did not cover up the abuse. All 4 of us siblings have been clear out to our friends and family why we moved out of the family home. And my mother has also made it clear why she and my late father were estranged. Even if we did not go out of the way to air the family's dirty laundry, Ben's also made it clear that he does not resent any of us besides our father. And us falling out would just be what Dad would have wanted. I might have understood a bit when I referred to the eulogy draft as unflattering. It was vulgar, vile, and definitely not appropriate for a funeral. Even if I'd agreed with Ben's plan, there's no chance I would have approved the draft. The eulogy would have reflected badly on him and not my father. I'm not going to ask Ben to keep the abuse a secret. He's free to tell anyone he likes. On Facebook, the local obituary, etc. I just think the funeral is simply not appropriate time, and especially not through a eulogy. So guys, Mr. Reddito here, this is a very critical story with a lot of playing pieces going on. There's an update that was posted just a little bit longer, with OP claiming that this update was the longest weeks of his life. If you guys are enjoying today's content, go ahead and subscribe to the channel as it's hands down the best way to support me, and let's jump into this update. Hey, it's literally been one of the longest weeks of my life. But the funeral has finally concluded. Thank you to everyone who commented on my original post. Some people sent me messages for an update, so here you go. First of all, it would have been a mistake to resend to invite my brother, and thank you to the people who pointed that out, and I had no way of keeping him out of the church, without asking security people to throw him out. That would probably have been almost as bad, if not worse, than the eulogy. I had to deal with a lot of people during the funeral preparations, many of them unpleasant but influential, and really was not in the right state of mind to make good decisions. It was also wrong of me to try to deny Ben closure, though I do not have to say that the comments accusing me of being complicit in or not having done enough to stop my brother's abuse were out of line. A singular post where I'm actively trying to limit personal information is not a fair basis for which to extrapolate our family's relationships. And it seems to me that many of the commenters have their own emotional baggage that they're trying to project onto my relationship. I met up with my brother and his husband just a few days after he gave me a eulogy. Thank you to those who suggested I ask about his motivations and provide alternate perspectives. We had a surprisingly brief talk. In short, Ben did not want us, his immediate family, to lionize our father. We agreed that Ben would come, but we would have to leave the eulogy to Dad's friends, and we would hold a private wake for his immediate family only. The funeral was mostly uneventful, thank goodness. A few questions were asked by the priest and my father's friends why none of his children or his wife were giving eulogies, but I just explained that we were leaving it for the wake. At the wake, we all got to say what we wanted to say. I'll leave it at that. Thanks to whoever suggested the after-funeral party, we went to our childhood home and had a great time. Due to COVID, though, we really hadn't had the chance to meet up much, and this was the first time we've had in a long while to catch up. After the funeral, we published an obituary with sections from each part of the family. It was tactically worded, and choosing the right words was a pain. But Ben had fun with this section. All in all, I think the matter was settled quite nicely. Thank you again for everyone who gave advice and everyone who provided their kind words. Alright guys, I found 2 comments, let's go ahead and check them out. I'm deeply curious about the political ramifications of outing a dead toxic jerk, especially since it seems like it was already pretty well understood that his wife left him and his children moved out because of it. That's when number 2 says, I assume that it was not just dad that was prominent in the community, but the family as a whole. If they're local politicians, etc., that stands for strong family and public outings. Even of a deceased member could have ramifications. Guys, let me know your thoughts about those 2 comments. Drop them down below. Thank you so much for joining me on today's video. Just so you know, I'm here every single day. Have a good one. I'll catch you later.